Please give a warm welcome to Tye Bentley.
Hey everybody, how we doing tonight? Woo! All right, thank you for coming out. It was nighttime, and I was feeling very emotional, very sad, very depressed, very neglected, uninvested in. I was feeling hurt from past abuse, past emotions, and my grandfather had just passed recently, and I was in a low place in my life. I had just started drinking heavily and using marijuana heavily and just not being responsible. I dropped out of my 5th high school, and I just was feeling like I was at the worst of my life, and I just needed a moment to breathe. I was at home, and all these thoughts were trickling in my head, and emotions were flooding me, and I just needed some space and an opportunity to just catch a breath of fresh air. So I left my home and hoped that I would walk down my neighborhood and just get a breath of fresh air. And as I was walking, I started to just view my environment over by 122nd and Halsey, and I just saw a very unhealthy environment. And seeing a very unhealthy external environment, having unhealthy feelings inside of myself, it made me feel like I was just at the lowest point of my life, and I didn't want to be alive. I didn't want to feel these feelings. I didn't want to deal with the emotions and the pain that I was feeling inside. So as I was walking down the street, I saw a bridge. And a thought came to my mind and said, you know, if you were to just go to the bridge and jump over, no one would care. You would have peace. You'd have your moment to breathe. You wouldn't have to deal with no more pain or sorrow of life and the triumphs and the struggles and tribulations that you've gone through. And so I walked over toward that bridge, and I remember as I got closer, I reached my hand out to touch the gate. And in that very sudden moment, I felt arms wrap around me from behind, just like this. Arms as if someone was behind me, squeezing me tightly. And then I began to cry. My emotions just flooded me. So much sorrow and so much hurt and so much pain. And as I was crying down to the very last teardrop, I remember those arms release. And this outer body experience that just happened to me was something I couldn't explain, something I was not used to. It's not something you experience every day. And I was just looking around trying to figure this out. What was this? And I couldn't figure it out. And I just stood there. And then I remember I looked up and I saw the stars. And while looking at the stars, I had this imagination that come to my mind and said, and God sent an angel to rescue me. And one of the storytellers you're here tonight, Joshua Thomas, he has said to me, he said, you know, I believe that was your grandfather. I believe your grandfather's your guardian angel. And today I believe that also. After believing that an angel was sent to rescue me, I decided to turn around and go home. I just realized in that moment that I finally had that peace and that availability to just breathe. And so as I turned around and I started to head home, I saw a church in front of me, and it said Grace Temple. And in that moment, I just stood there and I looked at the sign of the church, and the song, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, was blind, but now I see, began to ring in my head. And then that, to me, was confirmation that God did send an angel to rescue me and that my life was worth living. So I went home, and I made my first affirmation before I even knew what affirmation was. And that was that I wanted to change. And so I knew that my first step in change would be getting back into school. So I made some phone calls, and I tried to call every high school in my area to get back in school. And it was really a hard process getting involved. There wasn't a lot of resources to get a 19-year-old dropout back in school. And so with a little bit of not so much hope, I continued on. And I stayed focused. I did the necessary steps it took every day to get back on track. And so moving forward, I'm now at my grandfather's funeral, and where everyone's very sad and emotional and crying because Grandpa died and we lost an amazing person in our family, I was sad, not one bit. I had my moment where I felt sad and lonely and depressed about the situation, but I finally reached peace at the funeral. I felt that my grandfather understood who I was and what I was going through, and I felt that he was my guardian angel and gave me peace. So with that being said, at the dinner after the funeral, I met my cousin. Her name was Tamara Tolbert, and she was on my grandfather's side of my family, someone I never knew. She reached out to me a few times via Facebook, but at the time, my head was in a bad space, and I didn't want to allow someone to come into my life or invest into me. And so I met her at the funeral, and we sat down and we talked, and she told me about her life and her story and who she was as a person. She was a pastor in her church, and she was an entrepreneur, started her own daycare, and she was telling me how the church started a restaurant called Poshines, and I was like, wow, this is remarkable. And she was telling me how my family was a part of this restaurant and some worked there, and it was just a whole new world, a whole new environment, and I wanted to be a part of that. And so every day I began to talk with her and go to church with her, and I went to the restaurant and brought some of my friends with me to taste the food, and it just reminded me of when I was 16 years old and I lived in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I used to watch this show on Oprah Winfrey Network, and it was called Sweetie Pies. And I used to say, God, I wish I had a family restaurant. And here's Poshines. I was like, what? You gotta be kidding me. I have a family restaurant. And so now I'm in Poshines, and of course I started working there too. And just the people that work there, and the mentors that work there, the staff and the leaders in the church, and all the people that are involved in this restaurant became mentors to me. They invested in me, they helped me, they prayed for me, they supported me. They let me know that everything was okay and everything was gonna be okay. They reminded me who I was. And so I began to build a stronger relationship with my cousin Tamara. And our relationship grew to where she now became my aunt. I now call her TT. And I told her, I said, you know, TT, I really wanna get back in school. I wanna change my life. I wanna get back into becoming the person that I always dreamed of in myself. I wanna go to college. I wanna graduate. I wanna accomplish some goals. So she picked up the phone and she called some people who had resources to POIC that she knew. And 2 days later, I was at POIC, and the day after that, I was inside of POIC as a student. Now, I was excited to go to school and finish my high school diploma and get my degree, but I wasn't so much excited to be at POIC. And I had heard a bunch of rumors. A bunch of people said, oh, that's a gang violence school. There's kids there that shoot up the school, and there's, a lot of criminal activity and different negative things, all rumors. But when I got involved, I made up my mind that I didn't want to allow myself to open up. I wanted to just go to school, get my degree, and go home. And that changed. The more I went, every day the teachers invested in me. They were very helpful. From the staff, they were loving, caring, supportive. If I missed a day of school, they shot me a text or gave me a phone call just to check on me and make sure I was okay. When I was in school, if I raised my hand and said I needed help, no matter what the topic was that we were learning, they would stop and help me and make sure I understood what we were learning. For the first time, I was at a school where I was learning and growing, and people were investing into me. And I felt a family within this community. When I graduated, I thought it would be over. I'd take my degree and go home, but instead, someone walked me over to the transitions program that was available in POIC. And when I went to the transitions program, I was told that there would be a career coach that would be able to be my career coach and follow me from the age of 18 to 25. And if that was something I wanted to be a part of, I can sign up. And I was eager about that. I loved the community of POIC, and I loved the mentorship that was involved in that school. And so I said yes. And I received my first career coach, and then my life began to change. I began to receive opportunities left and right, opportunities for job, work training opportunities, opportunities to travel on a full paid expense trip, to learn about different things in the area that evolved around nonprofit organizations and building up the community and students and kids in different communities. I began to find out who I was as a person. I won a scholarship for college, and I began to grow, and my mind began to further and further. And so, as things continued, I began to become more of a successful person inside. I started writing, I started blogging, and I started doing my own spiritual journey, becoming the best version of myself. And then, shortly after, now, who I am today, I am Tye Bentley. I'm a young entrepreneur. I now work with POIC to create a food business that will soon change the food organization of the school. And this is me, and this is my story. Thank you.